It's time to go out and...
Hey, everybody, from a nightclub and a sweat lodge at the end of the world, this is Michael C Ruppert, Tracker of Truth. It is Sunday, the 17th of March, 2013. I would say St. Patty's Day, but pagans don't really like St. Patty too much. He had a habit of trying to kill everybody who believed that Mother Earth was sacred and alive. But that's okay. You can wear green if you want to, and I certainly say hello to all my Irish friends out there. All right, so busy night, big show. When I heard today from Graham Hancock that he was available to be on the show tonight, I was overwhelmed and ecstatic. And I spent a lot of time, I was so aware that there are so many important things about which we must talk tonight in this brief time that we have, that I started working on an introduction, and after a while I just gave up. And I was given inspiration for how to approach the show tonight with this quote, which is from Crazyhorse, who fought against General George Armstrong Custer at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. In 1877, Crazyhorse said, "Upon suffering beyond suffering, the Red Nation shall rise again, and it shall be a blessing for a sick world, a world filled with broken promises, selfishness, and separation, a world longing for light again. I can see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again. In that day there will be those among the Lakota who will carry knowledge and understanding of unity among all living things, and the young white ones will come to those of my people and ask for this wisdom. I salute the light within your eyes where the whole universe dwells, for when you are at the center within you and I am at that place within me, we shall be as one." Crazyhorse. And I thought about that, and I said, it's a special show for a lot of reasons because of the state of consciousness that we bring to it tonight. And I am kind of approaching this show tonight from the standpoint that Graham Hancock and I are sharing the same consciousness, and therefore very little work is going to be necessary. I am going to have to introduce him to set this up so that we can make best use of our time. Very quickly, Charles Eisenstein, author of Sacred Economics, has been a guest on this show twice, will be our guest 2 weeks from tonight, just before he does a 3-day appearance in Boulder, Colorado, in mid-April, which I will be attending. Charles Eisenstein is an amazing light and a new leader in this consciousness, and the bears are coming out of their caves. Tonight, as we sit down to have this discussion with Graham Hancock, European banks are on the edge, on the verge of a major evolution, because in Cyprus, it has been announced that the Cyprus government will take 10% out of everybody's bank accounts effective tomorrow to pay for austerity, to pay the banks. They will be going into checking and savings accounts, taking 10%. Now ask yourself, what would happen if 10% of whatever you've got in your checking account disappeared overnight, and how many bad check fees would you have, and what would fall through? Well, that's what's happening in Cyprus. The world's having a breakdown, whether you look at Fukushima, whether you look at climate change, whether you look at any of 1,000, how about 12,000 dead pigs floating in Shanghai's water supply. It's springtime. The bears are stirring from their hibernation, and the great energy of new life is on the move. Tonight's show certainly paints that picture. This is a lodge tonight, and I'm holding sacred space. We are not apologists here tonight. We speak with the confidence of knowing that our consciousness is alive and functioning and flowering. There are lots of bears on the move now. I'm a bear. Graham Hancock's a bear. Joe Rogan is a bear. Greg Braden is a bear. Robert Hastings is a bear. Derek Jensen and Charles Eisenstein are bears. There are many of us, male and female, who are moving into action synchronously now, and I believe Graham will agree that he's aware of that movement. But there's a stunning power where it's a massive shift in consciousness that I believe is very, very real. The 100th monkey is here. So there are 3 authors in my life. And when I picked up their books, I had a symbiotic, a physical and emotional, a spiritual and energetic reaction to them. The first was in the early 1980s when I entered 12-step recovery, did 21 years there. and I picked up the books of Edgar Cayce. I cannot tell you how these books possessed me. I read 5 or 6. Then I read some books by Graham Hancock. In particular, almost a decade later, I read The Sign and the Seal, and I read Fingerprints of the Gods. And Fingerprints of the Gods is one of 2 books that I used upon which to model my book, Crossing the Rubicon. I looked at the work Graham Hancock had done in that book, and I said, holy shit, if he can do this, this is the way it's done. And the other book which I used was a book by Gerard Colby and Charlotte Dennett called Thy Will Be Done, Nelson Rockefeller and the Conquest of the Amazon. I love the synchronicity here. Graham Hancock sold between, I believe, 5 and 6 million books. He's written, 2,000 books. He's written like 20 or 30 books. He's world famous, and if you don't know who he is, look him up. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but it is a distinct honor for me tonight to say my first words to him, having been a fan and been inspired by him for so long, who was born exactly 6 months, almost to the day, before I was. Because there are times when 2 pieces of light can connect, and the light gets many, many times brighter. So as I welcome Graham Hancock to the show tonight, let me just say this, that this is a sacred space that I hold here. We do not apologize. Graham knows as well as I do the pains of having to footnote everything and to defend that because of the really, really bad ways in which we have been brutally attacked over the years for our work. He's free to talk about that, but I know that we have shared that experience. But this is a place where we know we are winning, and that's the way we talk, and that's the way we're going to approach this show tonight. And I feel like I've talked too long already. Graham Hancock, welcome to our lodge. Welcome to join all of us on the Lifeboat Hour in A New Consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. It's good to be amongst friends. I appreciate that introduction, and I appreciate this connection with you.
Oh, absolutely, sir. We got a lot of work to do tonight. So before I'm going to ask you to speak for yourself here, because I believe we can save time before we get to other really important issues. For those of you who don't know what TED is, here's what Wikipedia has to say. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. It's a global set of conferences owned by the private, non-profit Sapling Foundation, formed to disseminate, quote, ideas worth spreading. Founded in 1984. They've done, everything. And Bill Clinton, Al Gore, Bill Gates, a lot of people whose names are anathema to me. And I have never had great respect for their work, having seen much of my work turn up in other presentations there. But when TED had Graham on, it became the presentation which I played on the show last week. And I'm assuming, for the sake of discussion, that everybody is familiar with that brilliant piece of oration that so sums up where we are right now. So that's who TED is. Now, with that, Graham, in your own words, because that'll save time, can you take us briefly through how the TED thing came about, how it went, and what's happened since? I'll let you tell that story.
Sure, absolutely. It's been an extraordinary and strange experience altogether. Because I've been on the outside and on the margins of things for very many years, and TED is kind of, although they say that they're in the business of transmitting challenging ideas, they're kind of mainstream and central. So I was very surprised to get an invitation to speak at a TED conference. Now, to be clear, this was what is called a TEDx conference. That's, there's the main TED conference, which is one thing, and then there's TEDx conferences. I'm going to use their language, which take the TED brand. They speak of themselves as a brand, like a can of beans or a motor car, which take the TED brand, but they're independently organized conferences which occur all over the world. And a group of good-hearted, open-minded students in London got together and decided to create a conference that was going to challenge existing paradigms, which they felt was very much within the ethos of TED as spreading new and challenging ideas. And they invited me to be one of the speakers at that conference. And amongst others, they invited my friend Rupert Sheldrake to be a speaker at that conference. Rupert Sheldrake is a scientist, but he's been very critical of some mainstream science, and he's done excellent work on what are regarded by mainstream scientists as fringe topics, such as telepathy, such as the sense of being stared at. He's written a book about dogs who know when their owners are coming home before their owners even know when they're coming home. This kind of thing. So, interesting science that he's done. So he was another one of the speakers. And when I saw that Rupert was going to be there, I thought, well, great, this is going to be a very interesting event, and I decided that I was happy to speak at it. And it was a significant challenge because I was required to present a talk. My subject was going to be consciousness, which is a subject that I've been deeply involved with for many, many years, and I was required to present a talk in 18 minutes, and I took this, it's much easier to talk for an hour than it is to talk for 18 minutes.
Oh, indeed. I've had that experience many times. You really have to focus.
You've really got to focus, and you've got to be sure you don't make missteps because you don't have time to go back and correct your errors. It's a very, very fast-moving situation. And I conscientiously, for a month, worked up and developed this talk called The War on Consciousness, because I do believe that is what is going on in our society today. Our society values only one specific kind of consciousness, which is what I call the alert, problem-solving state of consciousness. And our society allows us little holidays from that state of consciousness with alcohol and tobacco and coffee and sugar, and one or two other pharmacological drugs that are approved.
Yes.
But otherwise, we're not allowed to explore any other states of consciousness. And in fact, our society will send us to prison if we exercise our sovereign right as adults to explore the mysteries of our own consciousness by using, for example, psychedelics. I mean, what an unbelievable transgression on adult sovereignty it is for a government to tell us that we may not have certain experiences in the privacy of our own homes, in the inner sanctum of our own consciousness. And I always say, let's get this clear, guys. If we are not allowed to be sovereign over our own consciousness, then we're not sovereign over anything.
No.
And we do not have any meaningful freedom. So this is quite a radical message that TED were inviting me to come on board and speak about.
Yeah. Now let me just do a little sidebar here, and say that the kernel or the grain of sand in the pearl of your speech was Mother Ayahuasca. And yes. I will say, for the record, which I have said it again, but I will say that I maintain the public position that I have done one journey with a substance called 5-MeO-DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is the root drug of Mother Ayahuasca, a God-given, spirit-given psychedelic substance. And so has my friend Joe Rogan, and I know that you have been a guest on Joe's show. And we, in a sense, if you will, follow not only from the traditions of many shamans going back and grandfathers many, many tens of thousands of years, but also in the footsteps of people like Terence McKenna and others. I wanted to put that out just for disclosure.
And I'll pick you up on that sidebar, and I will say that ayahuasca, which is an indigenous visionary brew of the Amazon jungle, which has been in use for thousands of years in the Amazon, has become a very important part of my life. I have just this year completed my 50th journey with ayahuasca. I've had 11 journeys with DMT, smoked DMT as well. DMT is the active ingredient of ayahuasca, but DMT is not normally accessible orally. We normally have to smoke it because there's an enzyme in our stomachs called monoamine oxidase that switches off DMT on contact. But in the Amazon, those clever shamans of the Amazon have got round this problem. They've created an orally active form of DMT by mixing together two plants, one of which contains DMT and the other which contains a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. It's quite advanced chemistry, actually, that they're doing down there in the Amazon, and the result is a highly psychoactive oral brew that produces a journey that lasts for about 4 hours, whereas, as you know, smoked DMT is a much shorter journey.
Yeah, my 5-MeO journey was 2 hours as opposed to a standard DMT journey, and I should add,
a standard DMT journey, because 5-MeO DMT and NN-DMT are somewhat different things. A standard DMT journey, smoked DMT, is 12 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. But I want to emphasize.
So what we're dealing with DMT is a substance which is, evokes gasps of horror from the thought police in our society all around the world, and which is a Schedule I drug and which is highly illegal. But here it is, the active ingredient of an ancient and sacred brew, which shamans of the Amazon believe brings us into contact with other realms and other intelligences and other entities that they call the spirit world. And I, initially, because I wanted to research this subject for a book that I wrote some years ago, a book called Supernatural, I had to go down to the Amazon and experience this extraordinary brew. And what's happened since I had those experiences for research is that I found it's had such a transformatory effect on my life and has made me rethink many of my fundamental ideas about the nature of reality, that I've continued to work with ayahuasca, and I have 5 or 6 ayahuasca journeys every year.
I have had an observation, Graham, as a result of this, and we'll get back to the TED story. I'm sure most are familiar with it, that not only your presentation, but Rupert Sheldrake's and several others, and I find some amazing threads of consistency between all those presentations, have been systematically taken away from TED.
Well, look, can I just speak on that? Because,
sure.
Okay, TEDx did the conference. I spoke at the conference. My talk was put up on the TEDx YouTube channel, okay, and it ran there for 3 weeks. And during those 3 weeks, it gathered 132,000 views. And the talk was clearly popular. It was controversial. There was a lot of discussion around it, which is very healthy. Free individuals were choosing to go and listen to that talk and make up their own minds about it. And some people liked it and some people hated it, and they were debating in the comments, and that is exactly what should happen in a free and open society. And then TED, the organization, the big brand, which is funded by huge pharmaceutical companies and Xerox and all sorts of people like that, then TED suddenly stepped up and said, we are not going to allow people to see this talk anymore. We are going to take it offline. We are going to take it off the TED YouTube channel because, quote unquote, it is not scientific. And they did the same on the same day with Rupert Sheldrake's talk. And yes, what a patronizing attitude to the adult population of the world, that adults are not capable of making up their own minds about the merits of a talk. TED must take that decision for them and just actually take the talk out of circulation whatsoever. And I must say, this made me extremely annoyed. Well, and it is, I think, an insult to the intelligence of reasonable, thoughtful adults everywhere that TED have behaved in this way. And I think it's actually a significant issue in our society today that we have a kind of thought police operating, which seeks to... It's ironic that my talk was called The War on Consciousness.
Yes.
Because actually what it's about is a thought police that seeks to control our consciousness, mind control in our society, and I've now seen that applied directly to my own talk by TED taking it offline.
I'm holding in my hand, Graham Hancock, right now, a book called The Master Game, written by yourself and Mr. Robert Boval. which led me to some amazing insights, and one of which was, as I have looked back, I've been on a spiritual path for 30-some years, and I've studied a great many criminal activities and persecutions, but one of the things that I find in common, especially from this book, was I saw a common theme behind all of the persecutions, the genocides, the enslavements, the infection, the destruction, systematic as applied by the Catholic Church, as applied by human industrial civilization, which is that anything that had an earth-based philosophy was targeted, and that would include even Gnostic Christians,
absolutely,
Hermetic Christians. And what I see here is a parallel in this information that is being trying to be excised from TED. There is a consistency, and I've been a warrior my whole life. You know, I've been out here spitting in their faces for a long time. And what I see here is a consistent theme, and what I'm sensing is, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing the beast howl. I think a nerve has been struck. Do you feel that?
I totally think a nerve has been struck. It's absolutely the case. A nerve has been struck, and that nerve is the arrogant notion of relatively small groups of people that they have the right to control our thinking.
Yes.
And clearly, my presentation on TED was challenging to that idea of theirs. And rather than debate me, they just decided to take me offline. But, you know, they'd forgotten something. Mm-hmm. They'd forgotten that now today is not the 1980s or even the early 1990s.
Exactly.
Now today we have the Internet. We have an instrument for the free expression of views. And all around the world, millions and billions of people are refusing to wear that chain around their neck anymore and are refusing to be told what to think. And I've been heartened and encouraged, and my heart has been warmed by the fantastic response that the global community on the Internet and that my social network community on my Facebook pages has given to me to turn against TED and tell them, we are not going to put up with that shit anymore, TED. We are not going to put up with it. We are free individuals, and we are going to think what we want to think, and you will not tell us what to think. And I've been so encouraged by that, and I think that, you know, this is one sign amongst many that the horrendous system of control that has suppressed the human spirit for so long and that has operated so powerfully in our societies is just falling apart, breaking apart, and that something new and wonderful is being birthed. And I think we should all feel grateful to be part of the birth pangs of a new tomorrow.
Speaking from a spiritual standpoint, I just had a minor vision in my head, a vision in my head of George Orwell and Terence McKenna dancing an Irish jig together, twirling each other around. There is an awakening underway, and this goes back to the theme that I'm painting. Now, as I look through the systematic persecution, murder, annihilation, torture, rape, all these words need to be said. We have to bear witness to this. Of all of the ancestors for the last 5,000 or 6,000 years since a God Jehovah separated us from everything else, whether you call yourself Lakota or Hopi or Bushman or Buddhist or Hindu or any Druid or pagan or Wiccan, whatever you call yourself, understanding the interconnectedness of all things, we are all Gaian now.
Yes.
And I believe that Gaian consciousness is alive and well, especially in this lodge that we're holding tonight. And I feel that very strongly, and I'm sensing that you do too, that we're in motion now, that things are...
I feel it very strongly, and this is part of the mystery of ayahuasca, and it's part of what Ted didn't like about my talk, because I talked a lot about ayahuasca in that talk. And I was careful in what I said to make clear that I'm not claiming any reality status for these visions. I myself believe that the visions are highly meaningful and real, but I don't claim or insist that others must believe that. I'm simply reporting what people experience all around the world. And it's a very curious thing, as the Amazon jungle, that sacred realm, that unique source of biodiversity, the lungs of our planet, that beautiful garden of the Amazon jungle, as it comes under increasing threat, as it faces the most horrific destruction from the global industrial complex, as whole country-sized areas of the Amazon are slashed down and turned into soybean farms to feed cattle to fuel the hamburger industry. As all of this is happening, as this suicidal attack on the Amazon is taking place, out of the Amazon has emerged this ancient and sacred ceremony associated with a vine and a leaf. And this is the ceremony of ayahuasca. And in the ayahuasca visionary state, which can go very, very deep, people all around the world who've not been in contact with one another, who've not compared notes, are reporting encounters with an intelligent entity who they construe as a goddess. And more often we call her Mother Ayahuasca. And although she is not powerful in the physical realm, she operates in the realm of consciousness, and she believes that she can bring about change in the world through affecting and altering human consciousness. And now, suddenly today, after thousands of years of being confined within the Amazon, just at the moment when the Amazon is under greatest threat, you can find ayahuasca ceremony available in New York, in Los Angeles, in Toronto, in Tokyo, in London, in Cairo, anywhere you go in the world, even in the Arabian Gulf. You can in the countries of the Gulf, the Arab countries of the Gulf, like Dubai or Qatar, you can find ayahuasca ceremonies available. Stunningly, all around the world, this vine has traveled out of the Amazon and has presented itself globally in human culture and is having an impact on human consciousness. And you know, this way that she's seen as a goddess, as the mother goddess of the planet, ties in exactly with what you're saying about Gaia. And that is what many of us who've drunk ayahuasca are coming to feel that we're dealing with here. Yes. And you know, she's an extraordinary encounter. And I understand that people who have not experienced ayahuasca must feel very skeptical about what I'm saying. And all I would say to those people is, hold on a while. Go drink ayahuasca in the right setting, in the responsible setting with shamanic guidance. Yes. And that is available in the West as well as in the Amazon jungle. Go drink ayahuasca, have that experience, hold your judgment until you've had that experience, because it is extraordinary and it is transformatory, and it will work on you and on your own life and make you think about the harm and damage that you do to others, and it will work on your consciousness in relation to the planet as a whole.
Indeed, and this is a perfect setup. We're at the bottom of the hour. I'm skipping a station break tonight, Graham. I don't know if you've heard the Lifeboat Hour before, but it is a part of our lodge ceremony, our tradition here, that we always mix music in with, and as you know from having attended many ceremonies, that the music and the drama is extremely important.
Music is important.
This is a part of our ritual here, and I have picked tonight a very, very special song, and I wish that I could see Graham Hancock's face when he hears what I'm going to play tonight. I am playing this in his honor and in my honor, but also in the honor of all of the people that I know that Graham Hancock and I recognize who held the space open for us to appear and make our contributions at this critical moment. But it is time, and our time has come. And so I chose tonight a song from a group called Florence and the Machine. The song is called Spectrum, and I know you who have followed me for a long time are going to crack up when you hear the catch line in the song. But let this song into your heart, and let this song work on your spirit as you listen to the rest of this show tonight. Here it is. Let's go. Well, there's a little inspiration for everybody. That was Florence and the Machine. The song is called Spectrum, and the hook line, in case you didn't hear, was Say My Name. Her name is Gaia. Her name is Gaia. Say her name. Let us strike those notes. Let us become harmonies
Let us remember the sacred beauty of this planet that we've been gifted, the incredible opportunity to be born in a human body, to be able to make these fine distinctions between light and darkness, to learn and to grow and to develop in this garden of experience. What an opportunity we've been given, and how wicked and wrong it is of government and state forces and nameless bureaucracies to alienate us from our true destiny as spirits in growth in this garden.
There is, for those of you out there listening tonight to the Lifeboat Hour, you're all involved in this, and there is some amazing prayer being let loose tonight. And let's go for it. This is Michael C Ruppert, Tracker of Truth. We're on for the second half of the Lifeboat Hour here on the Progressive Radio Network. My amazingly special guest and instant old friend, Graham Hancock, is joining us tonight. We're talking about a whole lot of things that are going on. I think most importantly, something we've already concluded together, which is that a shift in consciousness is underway, and ipso facto, the fact that we are having this show and this discussion is proof of it. Okay, so Graham, let's go back and let me throw something else into the mix for your discussion before I turn it back to you. Joe Rogan recently posted an interview with Eddie Wong, who had been a TED presenter. We've both been on Joe's show, and I think we both think very highly of Joe.
Joe's a fantastic guy. I love Joe. He's a wonderful man, and his show is really tremendous instrument of raising consciousness in the world today.
So what I see happening now is, speaking for myself, but I can feel you nodding your head already. I started as an investigative journalist more than 30 years ago, and you're right. We no longer face the same obstacles of consciousness that we used to have to deal with, that were so nauseating, so mundane, so heavy, so pedantic. That stuff.
Well, the big powers in those days could just shut down the individual in a second.
Yes.
By their control of the mass media.
Yes.
They could just absolutely decide what messages reached the public and what messages did not reach the public. And this is why the Internet is such a beautiful thing and such an amazing instrument for liberation despite all its problems, because the truth can no longer be hidden away in a dark corner. The Internet and the power of the human spirit and the drive that so many people have now for truth, for truth to be brought out, is served by the Internet in an incredible way.
One of the things,
if I can just say, I mean, sure. This has been brought home to me by the fantastic, heartwarming reaction that I have received following the censorship of my presentation by TED, and the incredible support. And I'm just so grateful for that support, and I want to put it on record to my social network communities on Facebook and to the Internet community around the world who've come to my rescue and my support and spoken out against what TED did. And just on that theme, I want to add, please, I have put up, because this is a very quick conversation about a very long and deep issue, sure. I have put up all the links that will be useful to people who want to research this matter further on the first page, the opening page of my website, and that is simply www.grahamhancock.com, GrahamHancock.com. On the very first page, all the relevant links are there, and people who want to explore this further, who perhaps aren't familiar with what we're talking about tonight, will find the background information through those links.
Great. When you speak of the power of the Internet, and yes, there is something alive and beautiful happening here, I was struck immediately by a number of links where new research in particle physics and quantum mechanics is absolutely, to use a word that David Wilcock uses, is totally coherent with shamanic teachings, and science and shamanism are approaching. And I refer specifically not only to the work of David Wilcock, whose book Source Field Investigations was another pivotal turning point in my life last year. But
and I wrote an introduction for that excellent book.
Okay, but also specifically the work of Greg Braden, who was an amazing inspiration. And I think you've made some video presentations with Greg, have you not?
I met Greg only once as a matter of fact, and that was way back in the day in like 1997. A lovely man, very much enjoyed meeting him. Not had the privilege to meet him again since then, but I do highly value and respect his work.
And what he has done with, like you have in your work and I have in my work with Crossing the Rubicon, is he has compiled enormous amounts of peer-reviewed, overwhelming science that tells us, essentially, that consciousness, that frequency, determines our physical reality. And
exactly. Exactly.
This is the ayahuasca message, right?
This is the ayahuasca message, and this is what the powers that be detest.
Yes.
And this is why my TED Talk was taken offline. Because what I'm fundamentally challenging is a deeply rooted assumption within the power structures of our society about the nature of consciousness. Mm-hmm. Most mainstream scientists, not all, but most mainstream scientists, and they exert a stranglehold over the public thought about what is real and what is not real, take the view that consciousness is simply generated by the brain, right. That consciousness can be reduced to matter, that it is, in their language, an epiphenomenon of brain activity, that it's a kind of accident. For all the survival things that the brain does, we get this little extra bonus called consciousness. And they don't, and therefore, those who hold that view cannot possibly believe, for example, in life after death. They can't believe in the survival of death by consciousness, because they see consciousness simply as a product of physical activities. And they don't consider the possibility of another analogy, and I made this analogy in my talk, that the relationship of consciousness to the brain may actually be more like the relationship of a TV signal to a TV set. And in that case, when you destroy the TV set, the TV signal is still there. Yes. And I actually believe that consciousness is the fundamental property of the universe, as fundamental, more fundamental than gravity or the speed of light or electricity, that consciousness is really what it's all about. And consciousness is manifesting in physical form on this plane, on our planet Earth, but it is not limited to that form.
Here is another amazing synchronicity. Crazyhorse, the Lakota chief who was legendary, he was never photographed, and he had amazing magic. He had amazing power. Crazyhorse said that he spent more time in the spirit world through vision quests, through fasting, through his means. He spent more time there than in this physical world, because he said that was the real world and this is not.
And how absolutely right he is, in my opinion. How absolutely right he is. Look, we have these physical bodies. We have a physical job to do here on Earth. It is part of what we are. We can't deny that. We should celebrate the joy of our physical reality. But if we get lured into the illusion that that's all there is and that that's all that we're here for, if we get so deeply attached to that physical reality that we forget our real mission here, which is to grow and develop our spirit, our soul, then we are lost, because actually this physical world is the illusory world. Everything about it is temporary. Everything is in change. Everything is in flux. Nothing lasts. Nothing endures. There is a realm beyond this realm, which is real, and which we, while we're locked in our physical bodies, can only encounter in altered states of consciousness, trance states, visionary states. It's in those visionary states that we get a glimpse of the eternal reality beyond this temporary and limited reality that we call physical life. So Crazyhorse was absolutely right. That is the real world, and that's ultimately what we need to focus our attention on, because when we die, that's where our destiny is. That's what we're going to. That's what we're living our lives to step out into. That's the next great adventure, and we need to be prepared for it. And there are so many structures in our society which are denying us that opportunity to prepare, and which are forcing us to concentrate on trivial and meaningless pursuits.
So let us now weave another colored thread into this beautiful tapestry that we're creating in our lodge tonight, which would be also the synchronicities that appear with Mayan and Hopi prophecies and many, many other indigenous prophecies. I'm sure we could talk about those for hours, not just Native American, but ancient prophecies that spoke to the changing of an age, the precession of equinoxes, to the ending of a 5,300-year cycle, and to a period in time which all of the ancient prophecies, I believe, share in common, which is that we are evolving now into a golden age when, to paraphrase, our consciousness, the loving consciousness, will begin to manifest more directly and more quickly as physical reality. Now, how did I do with that?
Very good, very good, and that's absolutely spot on, and that's exactly what we're in right now. And let's not forget that tremendous powers, dark forces that have been operating throughout human history are ranged against this birth and are seeking to prevent it coming about. But it will come about. All that is necessary is for all of us, everyone, every individual, to exert absolutely our right to sovereignty over our own consciousness and to resist the control of those dark forces, those archons, as the Gnostics used to call them. And yes, you're right to draw attention to the Mayan and the Hopi prophecies. And of course, they received so much ridicule from the mainstream when 21st of December 2012 passed. And hey, guess what? The world didn't end, because the Mayan prophecies never said the world was going to end on the 21st of December 2012. They said what was going to happen then was the end of an epoch and the beginning of a new epoch, the very beginning of a new epoch, and we're at that cusp moment right now. And it's very interesting that the long count calendar, the 13 Baktuns of the long count calendar, ran for 5,126 years to 2012, and that's from 5,000 years ago until 2012, and those 5,000 years are exactly the period of the hegemony of the big state, the big government, the big corporation, the big centralized religion, all the things that have created the harmful conditions that confront us in the world today. And all of those things are breaking down. They're falling apart. They don't work anymore. The model is broken. The Maya were right. That era has come to an end, and a new era is being birthed, and it's our responsibility as sovereign, independent, intelligent, free-thinking adults to make sure that that new era is filled with light and beauty, and that we throw off the control of these powers and these institutions that have sought for so long to force us to think in their way. Our thinking is ours alone to decide.
The dialectic that is driving this rapid awakening of consciousness, I would liken to a sharp knife cutting through fabric. Is that as situations out in the world get progressively worse, more insane, more Bosch-like in the concept of hell, as those events start to come, people's consciousness are more available, and I think that's part of the edge that we have to carry as warriors, if you will, and is that we also have to bear witness to and watch the horrible things that are happening in the world outside.
Yeah, and in fact, this raises a very interesting point in my mind, which concerns the United States of America, because there are two issues going on here. At one level, on the global stage, I don't mean to cause offense, but the United States of America is a profoundly negative and deadly influence.
Yes.
But at another level, at the level of grassroots, at the level of the citizens and people of the United States, an amazing and beautiful thing is happening, which is not, and I feel emotional when I say this because it's not happening anywhere else in the world. There is an incredible awakening taking place in the United States, an incredible movement of the people to take power over themselves and to throw off these ghastly, horrific, controlling structures that have been misleading us for so long. And it's fascinating to me that in the very country which at the corporate and bureaucratic and state level has been connected with so much harm and damage, there is this flowering, beautiful awakening of consciousness and spirit in America. And I see it everywhere, and I see it more strongly in America than I see it anywhere else in the world. Mm-hmm. And it's an amazing thing, and it's why I love to come to America and just see this beauty that's all around me, and the incredible intelligence and awareness and state of awakening of just ordinary people in their everyday lives who are refusing any longer to accept the bullshit that's been poured out at them for so long. And it's a wonderful thing. So I see in the United States really the hope for the future, not from the state, not from the government, not from the big bureaucracies, but from the people at the grassroots level. Fantastic things are happening.
And here I think it is entirely appropriate to express gratitude in this lodge to all of the First Peoples of Turtle Island, to all of the indigenous peoples who have, through some of the most horrendous persecutions, genocide, you name it, that have been applied, to all of the Native American peoples who have held these traditions alive and who are now stepping forward, just like the ayahuasca elders and the elders from South America, who have held this knowledge for us and who are stepping forward abundantly to feed us with their teachings and the things that they have held so sacred for so long.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to quote the late, great, wonderful Terence McKenna, another great American, that these people have kept the flame of a tremendous mystery burning when the rest of the world wanted to snuff it out. Yes. And thanks to them, the flame of that mystery is still alive, and we may warm our hands at it and learn and grow from it. You know, what shamans in the Amazon told me when I asked them to analyze the sickness of the West, the sickness of the great industrial and technological powers, they said it's quite simple. You've severed your connection with spirit. If you don't reconnect with spirit, and if you don't do it soon, you're going to bring the whole house of cards tumbling down around your heads and ours. And they see it as their mission to help us to reconnect with spirit, and to do so urgently, and to do so soon. And I think there's a readiness and a willingness to accept that, not spirit as it is preached in the big hierarchical religions, but the free and independent reemergence of spirit that all of us feel flowering within ourselves today.
Which brings us now, we've got about 9 minutes left, to another theme I'd like to introduce here. It was just struck by that as you were talking. We also talk about prophecies, and there is a prophecy called the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, which had its origins, we believe, in South America, but it is extremely well known throughout the Western Hemisphere, which is that, if you will, on the one hand, the condor of South America and the eagle of North America will fly wingtip to wingtip and be reunited. But on another hand, it means that the heart, which has been brutally suppressed and subjugated to Cartesian tyranny, will find its liberation being a more powerful and organ, but also that the male and the female will be balanced again. And I am very aware that this prophecy of the eagle and the condor is being fulfilled as we speak. Indeed, perhaps, Graham, you and I and many others are part of the fulfillment of that prophecy, but it all speaks ultimately to healing. Healing and restoration of balance.
And it speaks, if I may say, to the spirit of the divine feminine.
Yes.
This is what's been so missing from the world. You know, we've had too much of this catastrophic, controlling, ego-centered male energy, and this is the other thing that's coming dramatically alive is the spirit of the divine feminine. I don't think it's an accident that the spirit of ayahuasca manifests and presents herself to people all over the world as a female entity. Powerfully, strongly female, with love and nurturing, but also with strength, real strength. And this is what we need to reach out for and grasp now, a harmony of male and female energies if we're going to move forward into a new and better world.
Which speaks to the Canadian movement Idle No More, an indigenous movement in Canada standing up to the Harper government's brutal rape of all their environmental laws and indigenous rights. And it is a matrilineal, it is a woman-led movement. And they are being also extremely effective in Canada and brutally ignored also by the mainstream media, which seems to be losing its grip. And I just felt I wanted to mention that.
We don't need the mainstream media anymore.
No, we don't.
The mainstream media, they've had their day. They're still trumpeting and crowing, but they're over, they're done with. We have a new kind of media today where people talk to people directly, where we have communities of like-minded individuals gathering and coalescing all around the world, where we no longer need to adhere to the notion of nation or patriotism, but where we associate with one another simply as fellow human beings with shared ideas and shared thoughts and shared hopes and shared longings. And this is the way forward to the future, in my view.
I think we are already in the future. Somebody posted on Facebook, Mike, is this the beginning of the end? And I stole from Winston Churchill, but I said it may be the end of the beginning.
Exactly.
I believe we're moving into that. So, Graham Hancock, we have 6 minutes left.
Well, can I just say again, because of a long and complex conversation, all the links that are relevant to this conversation, just look at the first page of my website, www.grahamhancock.com, and you'll find all the links there which will lead to deeper inquiry into the subjects we've been talking about.
What is on your immediate agenda for the near future, Graham?
Well, you know, I've been called, this is another curious thing from my work with ayahuasca. I've been known for writing nonfiction for many, many years, and I've written many books about historical mysteries. But for the last 4 years or so, as a result of a series of visions that I had in Brazil, I've been writing novels, you know, and I've written a novel called Entangled, which is a time travel novel about a battle of good against evil. One young woman 24,000 years ago, one young woman today, brought together by supernatural forces to do battle with a demon who travels through time. And I've just finished another novel called War God about the Spanish conquest of Mexico, which was a turning point in human history and which truly was the beginning of the darkness that we're now struggling to escape from. So I felt called to, I'm 62 years old now, and I felt that I needed to make a change of direction and to explore my creativity in other directions. But that being said, something else has happened as well, which is that I think the book for which I'm best known is Fingerprints of the Gods, which looks at the possibility of a lost civilization, of a great forgotten episode in human history more than 12,000 years ago. And my goodness, I came in for the most unbelievable amount of ridicule and criticism and attack from mainstream science and archaeology for even considering that possibility back in 1995. Yes. But now, you know, in 2013, so much new evidence has come out to support that possibility that I've decided to write a sequel to Fingerprints of the Gods, and I've been researching it already for some time, and I'm going to publish that sequel in 2015, and it's going to be called Magicians of the Gods, and I'm working actively on that project right now and for the next year and a half.
And what I'm working on now, I think you'll find this of interest, is a project which I cannot discuss yet. It's in Los Angeles, but it's getting closer. Essentially, which is based around the concept that between the works of people like yourself, Forbidden Archaeology, all of the work that's out there, it is possible to assemble, if you will, as a detective putting together a mosaic, a picture of reality and where we're going that is enormously coherent and makes sense as we try to match the world that we live in with the press releases that we receive about what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
So,
good luck with that. It sounds exciting. Well, sounds like it needs to be done.
I expect you're going to be hearing from me, and so will people like Greg Braden. Who, of all the other people out there, who has inspired you Who opened doors of consciousness for you in terms of writers, authors, teachers, anybody that's out there now or in the past?
Out there now or in the past. I have to say that amongst the greatest inspirations for me have been Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, and Terence McKenna. Come on. I mean, let's pay tribute to that great man who died too soon.
Oh.
Terence McKenna was a wonderful gift from the universe to humanity.
The
way he spoke, electrifying. He could summarize in a pithy, short phrase. He could summarize incredible depth and just spark awakening in people. What a gift he had, and thank goodness his voice is still heard all over the internet, even though he's long gone. And his brother Dennis McKenna, another wonderful individual who I've been privileged to get to know very well over the last year. And Dennis has written a book, The Brotherhood of the Screaming Abyss, about his relationship as a brother to Terence McKenna. And I would urge anybody listening to go out and pick up that book by Dennis McKenna. It's very good.
We are sadly out of time. When I was living in Sebastopol, California, I was living 4 miles from Terence McKenna's house, and the people who were heirs to what he was teaching there in Northern California were the ones who took me on my DMT journey, and I love the synchronicity of all of this. Graham Hancock, who I consider to be carrying the baton left by people like Terence McKenna, it's been an amazing treat to have you on the show tonight. I am very much honored. I do not think it will be the last time that we
I look forward to more.
We have a lot of work to do, my brother. I also call you my uncle. I thank you for all you've done, Graham Hancock.
Thank you. So good to talk to you.
We'll have you back soon.
Excellent.
All right,
Bye-bye.
everybody. All right, good night.
Bye.